Hi there, we are live. Welcome everyone. I have two very special guests here today. They are both military spouses and they are attorneys. They work for the Veterans Legal Institute, and they're here today to talk about licensure, talk about how they work for Veterans Legal Institute and how Veterans Legal Institute serves the military community. Ladies, I would love it if you both just took a moment and introduced yourselves a little bit about your background, and then we will jump right into talking about licensure. Nancy?
So my name is Nancy Jones, and my husband was a Marine for 27 years. He retired in 2016. So I did maybe 10 moves and countless deployments. I lost track, let's put it that way. And I was first licensed to practice law in the state of Virginia when we lived in Virginia I'm not even going to tell you, a long time ago, let's just put it that way. And so I have struggled through the years with keeping up with licensure as we moved from state to state. That has definitely been a challenge. But I ended sort of our career in California and ended up sitting for the California bar and working at Veterans Legal Institute. I kind of found my footing there. I had always done tax work because it's a federal practice. It didn't matter what state we were in. I could still work with the IRS, and I could work with both my CPA license and my bar license. But I got interested when I started working for Veterans Legal Institute. We do a lot of veterans benefits, which is also very beneficial because it is a federal form of law, and it doesn't matter what state you're in, the law stays the same. And so it's much easier to practice across state lines, so to speak. But at Veterans Legal Institute, we are a pro bono law firm that provides veterans with, mainly veterans. We do help some military folks that are outside sort of the base legal parameters with anything from divorces to veterans benefits to housing issues. I've helped on actual active duty military moving issues. So, it kind of runs the gamut, although I've lately been specializing more in the VA benefits line. And I will segue over to Caitlyn to let her describe what she's up to.
So I'm Caitlyn Emmons. I am also married to an active duty Marine. I've been married to him for 6 years. So I went to law school. I graduated in 2015 from the University of California, Irvine School of Law. We then got orders to Hawaii, which is not exactly convenient when you want to practice law in California. I did end up sitting for the bar in California in the hopes that the Marine Corps would somehow get the message and send us back home eventually. I did that while I was 7 months pregnant in 2015. I passed the bar and then did not get orders back to California. So we went to North Carolina after that. While I was in Hawaii, I worked as a legal fellow at a small nonprofit. And then we got to North Carolina and I had our second child, and I got a job working for the Superior Court judge in Onslow County, which is where Camp Lejeune and New River are located. So I worked there as a judicial assistant for him for about a year and a half, and then I was promoted to Superior Court trial court coordinator, which meant I oversaw the civil courts for our county and 3 other counties at the same time. So I didn't actually practice law while I was there. I did sit for the North Carolina bar and admittedly did not pass it, and decided at that time I was not interested in taking another one. I had 2 kids under the age of 2, and I had a job that I enjoyed. So I was like, you know what? Sometimes we don't have to do exactly what we thought we were going to do when we went to law school, because as a lawyer or as a law student, I had always wanted to do direct services. I had wanted to be a public defender. I had done work with domestic violence victims, and that's where my heart was. So we finally got orders back to California just in time for COVID, and I connected with Veterans Legal Institute through my law school roommate and was offered a part-time position at Veterans Legal Institute working on discharge upgrades. And that part-time position turned into a full-time position in July, and I'm happy to be a full-time staff member at Veterans Legal Institute. I am still remote, so is Nancy. That's one of the perks of our current positions, is that we are able to work from home, even though I'm much closer. Veterans Legal Institute is in Santa Ana. I'm in Temecula. It's about 2-hour commute if we had to make it. So we're both really lucky that we can sort of work from home and continue to do the family stuff at home. Like I said, I've got a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old who are a little more self-sufficient than they were when my legal career first started. But definitely it's nice to still have that perk of being at home, especially given the military lifestyle.
You both have absolutely fascinating stories, and I love how much it dovetails into talking about licensure because you both have gone through the ringer when it comes to moving, and it's long term and it's a struggle. I know Libby from the MSJDN and the work they're doing to create licensure reciprocity across all the states, and it is needed. There's a lot of military spouses that are also attorneys. And in general, licensure is an issue, no matter what your field is, if it requires a state license, teachers, medical professionals, so forth. And so let's slide our conversation over and let's talk about what Veterans Legal Institute actually does. I know you've mentioned a few things. You serve excuse me, I'm forgetting already everything you said. You serve housing and some other issues like that. So let's talk about the mission of Veterans Legal Institute, how it operates. If you are interested in utilizing those services, what's the process, the whole 9 yards?
Yeah, so Veterans Legal Institute serves both active duty and veterans, as the name implies. And our focus is on eradicating homelessness and creating self-sufficiency in our veteran and active duty population. So we do a very wide variety of stuff. We can handle housing. We're doing a lot of work with evictions, especially with COVID. And that really does sort of fall into the active duty and veteran category. Nancy does tax law and veterans benefits, and then I do discharge upgrades. And we really do handle sort of like I said, a very wide variety of things. We do expungements. I'm sure I'm forgetting things that I just can't even think of because we're able to leverage not only our staff attorneys, but we network with a lot of volunteers, attorneys who want to do pro bono work. And by leveraging our power that way, we're able to connect our veterans and active duty service members with a huge community of attorneys, not just in Orange County, but in LA County, San Diego County, and sometimes out of state as well.
Well, and if I am a veteran or an active duty service member, what is the eligibility to qualify to use your services? Is it financial need? What do I need to do to be eligible to utilize your company?
Yes,
definitely. Yeah, financial need. Because we're a pro bono or not-for-profit, we get a lot of our funding through the state bar and other various grant programs, which does limit our funding sources, but it's also sort of a scaled. So if you're a single person, there's an income limit there. So if you're like a family of 5, and that's where we usually see a lot of our active duty military is, they're a young couple with several children, and their income doesn't quite qualify. If it was just the single guy, but then once he's married and has a fair number of children, he would fall probably under our services there. A lot of our older Vietnam veterans, we service a lot of those folks, and their income doesn't even limit the services because we have a mandate where we can service anybody over the age of 65. Those we kind of focus more on veterans benefits, and when we say veterans benefits, it's sort of any kind of claim that you might have with the VA. And in some cases, it might be a debt that's outstanding with the VA for whatever reason. It might be a need for initial services or initial claims or an appeal of a claim. We've serviced a number of Iraq and Afghanistan veterans that way. And it's a great fit for a military spouse because we're already what we call culturally competent. We already know the Marine Corps or the Army or the Navy or the Air Force, and we can really leverage what we've learned as spouses to better assist the veterans. And it's a way to extend your military family, I guess. And they appreciate that what they're talking about on a totally different level.
Yeah, I would say the conversation kind of totally shifts when you let the veteran know that you're a military spouse. They immediately get more comfortable in talking with you because they know that you at least have some working knowledge of what they've experienced, even if it's secondhand.
Well, that's absolutely wonderful. And I can imagine it's sort of uncomfortable as a client to come in and speak with an attorney at all. And so if there's some form of commonality or rapport there, that must be just a wonderful, comforting feeling. If you're in a place of need and you're there in the first place, it's not probably a comfortable thing to be doing at all. So it's great to know what the eligibilities are for utilizing the services. And so can we talk a little bit more about licensure? And if you are an attorney right now, what does the landscape look like for a military spouse attorney? You've both gone through the ringer. You've both had to take the bar multiple times. Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? What is happening with that?
So there has been a lot of progress. Sorry, I don't know if Nancy was about to speak too. There's been a lot of progress in terms of reciprocity across the states, but it really does. Lawyers always have a joke where the answer is it depends. And the answer is it depends. So some states have moved to a point where you're going to be able to get admitted a little bit more easily. And other states like California have not. So it really does depend on where you are at, what opportunities are going to be available for you. I know the Military Spouse JD Network has a very comprehensive guide of a state-by-state breakdown of what the requirements are. And they've been very active in pushing for reforms that would allow reciprocity, specifically for military spouses, which is fantastic. But there are still some states like California that are very hesitant to embrace that model. So like I said, it's difficult, and you sort of have to hedge your bets, because not only is it just a matter of sitting for the bar, there's months of prep that go into it. And the average time you're going to be at a duty station is about 3 years. So if you have to spend 6 months studying for the bar, take the bar, and then if you're in California, spend 4 months waiting for your results, well, that's almost an entire year of your time on station. So that's why it's really important to, if you are in a position to do it, get involved in a federal area of practice, because then you do have the ability to move your career with your significant other. But that takes different forms. So for some people, that's not going to be what they want. It's not going to be what they dreamed about when they went to law school. They're not going to be able to have that courtroom experience or do direct services in some cases, but it does allow you the ability to keep practicing in the hopes that eventually you end up at your duty station where you are admitted to practice the bar and you can find your dream job like I did. But I'm excited that my dream job can travel no matter where my husband ends up after California.
I would like to add real quick on California and some of the other states, how I ended up working at Veterans Legal, well, not how I ended up with, but what helped me work at Veterans Legal Institute was the state of California has a provision for out-of-state licenses. You don't have to be a military spouse, but you can have an out-of-state license. You can work for a pro bono for, when I started, it was 3 years. I think they just changed it to 5 years. So that was a good fit for me. I did have to pay like twice the fees. Like it was, I think, like almost $900 for me to do that, to work for a pro bono.
Oh my.
So either I had to pony up myself or ask the pro bono to pony up those fees. And then I didn't have to take the bar, thank God, at least for the first 3 to 5 years. But I did have to take their continuing CLEs. And I had to, in the first 12 months, I had to have 24 CLEs, which, unless you have access to free CLEs, that's an additional expense. Some of that may have changed, because that was certainly my experience in 2016, but definitely consider that for your state bars. A lot of state bars have those kind of, they either have some kind of military spouse where they can work under another attorney, which isn't always great because you do have to try to establish that relationship. But they also have these kind of, sort of trial practice areas or things like that, where they're trying to, fit you in to a certain area of law and allow you to practice that way. Now, if you don't want to do pro bono, that's a little different. You're kind of, then you've got to take some other route and maybe have a law firm that's willing to, a big national firm that's willing to work with you and move you about. I do know some spouses who have done that too.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is just amazing to think, well, let me pay $900 2 times in a period of years to work for free. That's there is something to be said, though. I mean, you cannot let your skills atrophy over time. And that's, why we volunteer. I don't like to encourage spouses to volunteer because I think they should give away their wisdom and skill for free. I think it keeps you from falling behind your peers in technology and in skill level. And it's good for your career long-term not to fall behind. So I just want to encourage you, if you're watching, we've had a lot of people pop in watching, letting us know that they're here. If you have questions, these two ladies are a wealth of information. Even if you are not watching live with us right now, I encourage you to drop your questions for them in the comments later and let them know what your questions are. And I'll make sure to get the information over to them so they can answer those. And ladies, as we get ready to close out our conversation here, I wanted just to give you the opportunity. Is there anything upcoming, any positions, anything like that that you'd like to promote before I let you go today?
So we are currently hiring a staff attorney who would do specifically housing, deal with housing issues like evictions in the LA County area. I know that's not particularly close to any military bases. We wish. I'm originally from that area, but as of right now with COVID, there's a lot of remote working going on no matter what. But if you are in that area and that is something you are interested in, we are still looking at applications. I believe we're also hiring a paralegal and looking for applications for that. So if that's something that people have an interest in, and also we don't like to give away our services for free, but we do appreciate time and volunteer efforts. If you are an attorney or just somebody who's interested in the law, we always accept volunteers to give your time and effort, and that's sort of how we sustain ourselves, is through the generosity of people's time and effort.
That's awesome.
I will say my starting as a volunteer led to a paid position. So that's the other thing. While you're building your resume, you're also, you've got your foot in the door, and what's available, what's not available. And you also know what other firms are hiring too, because you work with other firms. So.
Well, and that's something networking in is always a good idea, no matter what circumstances that you have to do that. And especially for a military spouse to get a foot in the door at a company like yours is just a huge, bonus, like brownie points for, first of all, serving the military community, and then potentially being able to get hired on later down the road to get paid to do the same thing. That would be great. So I appreciate you both so much and everything that you do at the Veterans Legal Institute to serve our military community. And if there's any questions later down the road, you guys drop them in the comments, and these ladies will make sure we get them answered. And even if it is just, it depends. So I appreciate you, Nancy. I appreciate you, Caitlyn. And thank you everyone else for watching.
Thank you, Jaime.
Thank you.